And I will pass it over to Shari. And as Shari's getting set up, I'll just kind of do a little intro on Shari, if that's okay. So, Shari, I think you haven't been in the position too long as the Chief Soccer Growth Officer, but you did play professionally in Norway, if I'm correct,
Did. Yep.
and was the captain of the Stanford women's team. So I know Sammy's from the West Coast too, so there may be some competition there. But also, more importantly, played ODP, was a club participant, as well as doing all kinds of different things in different other groups. So, Shari, really appreciate you being here today and looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right, I'll go ahead and take over to share my screen if you give me a minute. All right, can we see that all right?
Perfect.
Good?
All good.
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. So, I mean, first off, thank you, Adam, for letting me speak here today. He did already introduce me, but Sherry Summers, I'm U.S. Soccer's Chief Soccer Growth Officer. I've been in my role now about 8 months at this point, and as he alluded to in my background, I played soccer until I was about 25, so a very long time competitively. And then post-competitive playing days, have spent most of my career in and outside of sports in more strategy and operations roles. I'm so excited to be in my current role because soccer has changed my life, and I want to do everything that I can to help support the growth and the success of soccer in America and for everyone that participates. And so today I'll get into kind of some of the topics I'm going to cover and talk a little bit about my role, but I currently focus primarily on two areas. The first being, how do we grow participation, whether you are a coach, a player, a referee, and then two, how are we really setting up the right environment so that people want to be part of soccer for their entirety of their life, knowing that this can and will change over time. It's changed for me. I was a player. I still am a player, but now I'm also a huge fan. I have coached as well. I am going to be refereeing in Atlanta, and I'm just excited to continue to kind of move forward and hopefully make an impact on the game for the better working with you all. So with that in mind, some of the topics that we'll cover off on today, want to share a little bit about U.S. Soccer's vision, some of our strategic pillars, as well as the National Training Center, which is going to be housed in Atlanta. It will be our new home, and I have recently moved here, so excited to be a new Atlanta resident. From there, we'll talk about a few of the key opportunities and priorities for U.S. soccer and dive a little deeper into that being the ecosystem review, as well as some updates on the Safe Soccer Clearance Program. And happy to, of course, take questions at the end. There will be a QR code at the end as well, because at the end of the day, the point of this is really to hear from you all, because we will not be successful unless we are building strong partnerships, getting feedback, and staying connected to the people that across our landscape are making the difference. So bear that in mind as we go through this presentation. So I wanted to kick things off with this, which is one of my favorite slides, because US is really entering into a transformative period for soccer. Over the next 4 or 5 years, we have an opportunity unlike anything that we've had in the US, with Copa America, with the FIFA Club World Cup, with the Men's World Cup. We're currently bidding on the Women's World Cup, and of course, LA 28 all through 2028. For context, I think the last time that we had a Men's World Cup or a Women's World Cup in the US was a 32 and 24-year gap, respectively. And now we're looking at potentially 5 major soccer events in the next 4 to 5 years. This is an opportunity that it's been really exciting just to see the energy around the ecosystem of this opportunity that we can take advantage of. And really, at the end of the day, I know others want to be able to inspire millions, whether you are millions of players, millions of coaches, millions of referees, millions of fans of all ages. And our partnership with you all here today is going to be critical for that to be successful. So I wanted to kick things off with more about our National Training Center, which hopefully most of you at this point in time know that we are going to have a U.S. National Training Center in Atlanta, and it's going to consist of 200 acres of land. But we want to make an impact that goes well beyond this, and I think this is a truly unique opportunity to be able to do so. From our programming, from our partnerships, from what we can do on innovation to really scale this nationwide, we at US Soccer believe that having this national training center is going to give us an opportunity to truly drive growth of the game across the entire country. But most importantly, and this is something that I've heard from both JT and Cindy, and I think is a really important point, we want to make the National Training Center a home for all of US Soccer. And I'm excited about that, of what that potential can look like. We expect to host meetings. We expect to host nationwide tournaments. We expect to really be able to use this facility to kind of develop and share best practices across all facets of the sport. And so one of the key asks that I have asked previously and will continue is that we want to hear from you all as we are entering into kind of the design phase and construction phase of our project. How can the NTC benefit you? Because the more that we can hear from you, what this could look like and what type of impact that you all see it can drive for yourselves, the better that we can make that happen and bring that to life at the end of the day. As we look at kind of my role, and I spoke a little bit to it earlier in kind of the intros, my core priority when I talk about participation environments is really to enable you all to do your jobs as effectively as possible. For a little bit of context, historically, coaching education, refereeing, player participation, a lot of that was housed underneath the sporting director in addition to the national team oversight. But throughout kind of the strategic work that took place, at this point, I want to say about a year and a half ago, the team realized that we really need to split apart those orgs in order to ensure the appropriate focus, the appropriate effort was taken to service our ecosystem and really service growth of the game, service fostering these best environments for play and supporting the development of winning teams. And that's really where I come into play, where my entire focus is how can US Soccer provide services and products to enable you all to do your job? I'm excited to share some of kind of the progress we've made on implementing some of these strategic pillars, but we're only able to plan and really make progress toward what I can think of as a stronger and hopefully more innovative future for soccer because of you all who play a massive role in not only supporting, but also co-authoring strategies to accomplish this vision. And so as we move through this presentation, and really what's on this slide right now is as we think about how we can really make progress and how we think about the different facets of the landscape, you all are here because you are important to make player-centered decisions, to really help players at the end of the day learn the game, to develop their skills on and off the field and more. At the end, it's really you who are going to be able to make this vision a reality. So we published our accelerated initiatives, I want to say last September. And there were kind of 4 big ones that really were some of my focus areas. And I won't go into too much detail today about growing the number of referees or democratizing soccer knowledge, but I did want to go deeper on the amateur soccer ecosystem work as well as a safe soccer clearance program. But before doing so, just to give some of the highlights, and I'm open if anyone wants to kind of reach out, you'll have my email at the end of this, and I'm always happy to kind of hear from you all on some of the things that are top of mind for you. But on growing the number of referees, since I started, this has been one area that folks have consistently described as a crisis and something that we really need to turn around and really focus our efforts to support immediately. I'm excited. We recently hired Carrie Seitz, who is our first ever VP of refereeing for the Federation. Carrie is one of the most experienced referees, having represented the US at the highest levels on and off the field. And she joins us most recently from FIFA, where she served as the head of women's refereeing. Her role as she steps in is going to immediately lead the long-term strategy with a particular focus on not just growing the number of referees, but how are we developing talent and how are we keeping them safe at the end of the day. There'll be a lot more to come, and hopefully I can come back at them and talk a little more on referees next time. But some of the near-term progress areas right away that you're already going to see come to life. We last year launched a digital referee course pilot on really understanding, can digital help grow the number of referees, knowing that we need to continue to expand the funnel, but also what is that right mentorship model that's needed to support them from day one to be successful. We've also, and this is something that we've talked about quite a bit, kicked off a formal working group, the Referee Abuse Prevention Working Group, with a focus on how can we keep referees safe. And what you can expect coming forward are some updates, especially to the 531-9 policy on how do we define referee abuse, how are we thinking through the roles and responsibilities and reporting mechanisms so that we can make sure we're keeping referees safe at the end of the days. As well as a referee abuse marketing campaign and various pilots with physical signifiers that we'll put into market to see what is and is not working and continue to share those out more broadly. And finally, I think the team, Carrie is kind of the first edition, but this will continue to expand because we know that we need the right internal support and talent to be able to support all of the referees and the different communities out in the landscape. Shifting over to democratizing soccer knowledge, this effort is really focused on enabling learning for coaches, for players, for referees, and for fans across all parts of the game. Through this initiative, what we're really focused on is how can we offer products and services that advance the ecosystem and really allow the game to flourish. We know that and I'm sure there's lots of things that people here are already doing. There are great efforts underway across the ecosystem. The goal is to understand, what do you all want us to invest in to support your learning? And how can we also help be a scale player and highlight what you all are doing at the end of the day? And that'll lead me to where I actually want to go a little deeper. Today is Amateur Soccer Ecosystem and the Safe Soccer Clearance Program. This might be slightly, if some of you have all seen this before, I did want to kind of just give a little more context before we go into some of the more recent updates. But going back to our strategic pillars, one of the key feedback that came throughout that process was that we need to do an entire review of the ecosystem, because if we're actually going to make progress against growth, against providing the best environments, we need to review where we're at and what are some of the biggest challenges or things that we believe is really going to move the needle forward in the right direction. And then how are we bringing together the right set of stakeholders and inputs and feedback to co-author strategies to make sure that we're getting the maximum impact. And I'm a big believer that partnering is going to be more effective than staying and kind of keeping in isolation or silos at the end of the day, because through partnering, it means that we're going to be able to make exponential impact quicker. We know that the ecosystem partners have different needs, different priorities, different goals, but we also know that now is a time where we really feel that people are ready to capitalize. There are these big moments that I already alluded to. There are a number of opportunities that over the past few months, your feedback, other feedback has really helped to kind of define what are those biggest priority areas, and we'll touch on that shortly. And I know that people are excited to collaborate and to innovate at the end of the day, which is exciting for me because I think this is a new way of hopefully how we can continue to partner and work together moving forward. The right-hand side is how we'll do it. We are still in kind of that first phase and going to be moving into phase 2 in the next few months, and it'll be different timing based on different segments. But what you can see is just the full scope of how we're going to work through this process to make sure that we can not only do our diligence on hearing from everyone what it is that we need to really focus on, but then moving towards how we're actually developing these strategies together. As you look here, and one of the things is, I don't want to, there have been a lot of kind of feedback on definitions and nomenclature, and it's less, we'll continue to refine that as we continue to get feedback. But the key point of that is we needed to really tee this up by looking at key segments of participants that we can then tailor strategies against. Because the fact of the matter is that the needs in the recreational side are and should be different than the needs on the professional side. And that kind of continues to go for the competitive and the pre-professional segment. And you're also going to see that we're talking about a different market size, millions of participants versus approximately 4,500 participants, and different kind of goals that we're really trying to accomplish against each. And so we have broken it down where we have a dedicated team, Soccer Growth, which is underneath the Participation and Environments Department, that is really focused on owning and partnering for each of these segments to really make the right progress and understand what is something that can go across the board. What are things that we really need to make sure that we are tailoring by factor of different needs, different situations, different environments. So one of the updates coming out of these conversations, and one of the key questions that we continue to ask people is, if you could make soccer the #1 sport in the US, what would that look like? And what you're looking at here is really what surface is some of the key themes around objectives and some of the starting points from a tactical standpoint. Clarifying roles and responsibilities across all soccer, all levels of soccer, so that we can, in fact, provide the best, which best is going to look different across the board, but also the safest experiences for every participant. If you look from the recreational all the way through to the professional, there's going to be different focus areas. Recreational, we really want to understand how can we continue to expand a pie? How can we increase the number of participants, knowing that access and inclusivity have been two key themes that have emerged. As we kind of continue down through the competitive, as you start to see that people are wanting to have a more competition and more development in their experience, we know that travel and cost is a big barrier and inhibitor. So I won't go into too many of these details, but these are the things that are top of mind for us, because at the end of the day, we're not going to start with everything. We want to focus on what are some of those most critical needs and how can we start to then really make progress against that, knowing that more and more over time will continue to surface and bubble up to the top. How we're doing this, I hope most of the people I'm talking to today have seen this or known that this was available, but there are 3 engagement models. One on the left-hand side is our working groups. And so these have already kicked off for the most part. And this is made up of our kind of external organizational reps spanning both business and technical side. And the goal here is to make sure that they are supporting the thinking, the collaboration, some of the strategies across the board. In the middle, and this is really where we need your help, and I encourage everyone to reach out to connect with us to share ways that we can understand your needs, and that's through member feedback. There will be a number of different ways that you can kind of reach out and provide inputs, but at the end of this will be that QR code that I alluded to early that will give you an opportunity to talk about what's top of mind for you as well. And then public updates, we want this to be a very transparent and visible process. And so the US Soccer website hosts a page that is dedicated to providing updates and also feedback opportunities. So there's a lot of ways to be able to get in touch, but we also want to make sure that you all are in the know on what's the progress that's being made, what are some of those key updates, key messages, key communication, so that you know how we are moving forward. And it's a very transparent process, as I mentioned. I'll shift over now. That's kind of the wrap up of ecosystem review. I'll just end by saying that I've been in every single one of the kickoffs for the working group. I'm reading every single piece of feedback that folks are giving. And I'm really appreciative, Adam, again, for letting me speak here, because I think it's important to make sure that we continue to hear from everyone so that at the end of the day, we can make the best decisions that are what I alluded to as my core role of enabling you all to do the best job possible. I want to spend kind of the last remaining time on the Safe Soccer Clearance Program. We have officially wrapped up our small scale pilot phase for Safe Soccer. This concluded, I think, about a month ago, and the focus here was we were looking at smaller scale pilots, so think less than 50 people across a number of different groups, and focusing on the education modules, the user experience, clarity on the program purpose and value, and making sure, which is really exciting on the left-hand side, that we not only had a good number of participants that raised their hands, but also that they represented a wide variety of clubs and organizations and roles that are covered, knowing that different people going through this process are going to see different value propositions, and that's important to make sure that we are getting that feedback. I won't go into all of the strengths and improvement opportunities, but I think in general got some really positive feedback on kind of the education modules and the representation, and really an easy user interface end to end, and understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here. And we're taking all of these improvement areas as kind of the next steps of how we're going to continue to evolve this program in advance of our beta launch. So everything from different features like payment functionality, different payment methods like bulk payment, as well as different technology features or bugs or things that need to be integrated in at the end of the day. So this will continue forward. And I think one of the key themes you're probably hearing throughout this presentation is that we want feedback so that we can continue to get better. And so this is a similar spot where you kind of see the opportunity to be a part of this program. I'm excited to be able to have everyone and anyone participate so that we can understand how if we are driving towards providing a safer experience, a safer environment through the education, the awareness, the background check, et cetera. What's coming up next? We are going to be launching our beta come April 30th. And the beta launch is really going to be focused on testing different components of scale of customer service, of different functionality and features, some of which were mentioned beforehand. So you're going to see more and more of that team expanded just based on needing for more customer service support, a marketing campaign that's going to coincide with the launch of the Safe Soccer beta program. And then we'll continue to move forward with some of those key pieces that are going to enable adoption and facilitate just growth of this program in the way that is going to really provide value and benefit to everyone out in the landscape. That is all I have on my end, Adam. I first thank you again to everyone, and I appreciate giving me the opportunity to speak today. This is that QR code I mentioned a few times. So if it doesn't work on your screen, you also have emails to reach out to us. But we want to hear from you on any of the topics that I covered today or anything else that's top of mind. And yeah, appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shari. Appreciate it. Do you have some time for maybe a question or two?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I know Eric didn't listen to the original thing, which was to put it into the Q&A. I'm just making fun of him because I know him very well. But he did finally put it into the Q&A, and he did ask a question, if you can see that there, concerning the alphabet soup of youth leagues and how we can unify to a certain point. What would be the US Soccer's role potentially in some of those discussions?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely talking about the alphabet soup. In fact, right before this, I got off of a recreational working group call, and it's really our role is understanding kind of what are some of those, like I mentioned, some of those key themes that we should be working together to make progress again. So if we think about that recreational space, I think some of the key pieces is really around kind of cost and access and what that looks like. And here's the thing, there's going to be opportunities where working together to be able to facilitate progress against those is going to be something that we talk through. But there's also the fact that we live in the US, and it's geographically, that is one of the unique parts of our country, and also one of the challenges that it provides. And so figuring out how we can make sure that that's a consideration and how we start to move forward is also part of that piece. I won't get into unified structure or things of that nature, but what we will do is identify, I'm using cost and access as two examples that have surfaced pretty consistently. How can we start to make progress, knowing might be one way, there might be a couple of different ways that are going to work just based on different characteristics of where people are in the landscape, because what's going to work in urban might be different than rural.
Perfect. That's great. We've got a few more here. Mindy was asking concerning progress and responses to our feedback. Is there some type of an online forum or community that they can see
There
answers.
is, can I actually, Adam, if you don't mind, can I send you the website
Of course.
after this and have you disperse it out? Because there is, as I mentioned before, this is a very transparent process. So you are going to see updates and opportunities for feedback always. So I'll share out what that website URL is to Adam afterwards.
Perfect. I can
And then I
certainly do
see
that.
Thomas is Safe Soccer cleared, replacing Safe Sport. So Safe Sport is actually integrated into Safe Soccer clearance program. Safe Sport obviously is federally mandated. So there are kind of, that's part of, there's different phases within the Safe Soccer clearance program. That's still going to be a piece, and there's a lot of work that Monishim and folks have been doing in DC, because we know that there's progress being made on Safe Sport, but there's more progress that we want to see to make sure that they're kind of supporting soccer participants at the end of the day. So there's more to come on Safe Sport in general, but it will be a piece of Safe Soccer clearance program.
That's great. And there's one more here. Again, Dean didn't follow directions. Again, I'll give him grief because I can do that. Talking a little bit about US soccer in terms of developing players from rec to the higher level, updating coaches' qualifications, and recruiting large squads. Is there anything that we can help the clubs to be better at developing players?
Absolutely. I mean, I always think everyone can always improve, and that's kind of part of why how I operate and how we're operating is the reason we talk about feedback consistently, and this won't stop, is because there's always room for improvement. But I also understand that your needs are going to look different than other needs. So when you talk about what that looks like and what you can do, the first thing that you can do is open up a line of conversation so that we can start to understand what this looks like for you. Because I guarantee, and sorry, whose question am I answering? I missed the
That was
name.
Dean's. Yeah, he put it into the
Dean,
chat.
I
Yeah, yeah.
guarantee for Dean that your answer and your input is going to look different than others. And I think that's important to hear and understand at the end of the day.
And that might be specific. He can put into the QR code, throw that question in,
Absolutely.
and then kind of get some real good feedback on concerning that. So that's
Yeah.
great. No, I appreciate that. Awesome. I'll kind of open it up. Any other final questions? All right. I'll
Awesome.
kind of call the line there. Shari, thanks so much for your time today. We really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
And we'll be able to share these questions. And obviously, hopefully, the feedback that they use from the QR code will be definitely very beneficial to you and your staff and your group. And from myself,
Perfect.
certainly Mary Jane, my boss, and from everybody in the office, we appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Shari.
Take care.
Take care. All right. Okay, so we're jumping into Sammy. I appreciate your time again today. So I'll give you a great little warm up as well, just like as you get your set up here in terms of everything that you're putting through. So been with the Fire since 2023, formerly with the New York Red Bulls, if I'm correct. I think they just beat the Fire actually, didn't they? Or maybe I think it was a draw.
They
I
tied. It
think
was
it
a
was a draw.
draw. Yeah.
It was a draw. It was a draw. So and obviously have worked at college at the college level. Now working as well as doing some CEP with MLS and different areas as well. So and I do believe you played on the West Coast as well. Is that correct, Sammy?
No, no, no. I'm an East Coast guy. We gotta
Oh,
get
you're an East
gotta
Coast
get
guy.
that
Okay.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Right.
apologize. I apologize. I wasn't sure if you played on the West Coast, but
Ah,
North Carolina State. So if I knew everything, but and I
yeah,
know you coached with Orlando for a little bit as well. But
yeah.
so those are things are great. So we appreciate your time and looking forward to your presentation. And thanks again. I'll pass it over.
Right. Can you see that? Everybody's good?
Certainly can. Yep, no
Okay,
problem.
great. So I'll dive right into it. I think it was a good segue from that last question about developing players, because that's basically just going to give you a little bit of a deep dive into how we're doing in Chicago. And I think what I want to reiterate what Sherry was saying, it's going to look different for each club. I was doing this in various places, and then now I got to find the Chicago way of doing it as well. So it always looks different, but I think the holistic approach is like we're just trying to develop players for the national team. So as we dive into it, I just want to give just like a quick synopsis of just my coaching experience. So when I finished playing, I started coaching at the University of South Florida. That's my alma mater where I played. And then eventually kind of found my moment that I wanted to impact the youth a little bit more. So I got into the development academy at that time. That's what it was called, with Clearwater Chargers. Then eventually started my journey in MLS clubs. When Orlando City was a franchise team, that's when I joined with them. And then from there, went to NC State and worked with North Carolina FC. So I always kept that kind of bridging the gap from youth to college, and then went to New York Red Bull after that. And then now I'm at Chicago Fire, and recently just got named one of the assistant coaches with the U15 national team, which was a huge honor for me. That was my first call up as a coach. I played in youth national teams, U15, U16, U17 during that time. So to go back and work with the federation as a coach has been such an honor. So let's dive right into it. So moving from different MLS clubs and different parts of the country and different cultures, um, I've been kind of like doing a deep dive on what an individual development program could look like. So when I talk about player development and specifically individual development, it's got to be player driven. It's the players got to want it. As much as we can give them a guideline and nudge them in the right direction, they're the ones that have to be motivated to actually do it. So that's why I think that's like the first thing, is if we want to work with players that have that drive to get better. And that's just going to help them even outside the pitch in school, in gaining relationships with siblings and socializing, things like that. It's a little bit more than soccer. Soccer is just our platform to kind of help them throughout their journey of being a young teen into a teenager into an adult. So I think it's our job to kind of nudge them in the right direction, but they have to want to. And then the second piece is kind of gaining that relationship, to understand what drives them, what buttons to push to really inspire these kids, so that they're motivated to keep getting better as a soccer player and as a human being. So I think we have a really key role in being a good kind of role model for these kids and showing them the way. And then they are the ones that have to choose the right direction, and there's always going to be mistakes along the way. But I think if we have a patient mindset and we're always evolving as people, evolving as coaches, I think we can kind of nudge them in the right direction and hopefully that they can reach their goals. And then the next piece is goal setting. What are their goals? Do they even have any? Are they playing the game just to play the game because mom and dad played and they're just on a team, or can we help them, give them direction? And then the next piece is a timeline. Is there certain aspects of their game that we can put a timeline on, to hold them accountable? Not just say, "Hey, I want to be a professional," and that's it. That's everybody's goal, but how do we do that? And then the last piece is reflection. I think, which is the most important. That's helping our players be open-minded, and then helping them have that type of growth mindset where they can reflect and see where they went wrong. They can also reflect and see where they're making gains. And then how do we help them kind of go back and say the timeline, is it realistic? How's the relationship? Is this a person that you can call out in front of the team, or is this a person that you might have to speak privately with? And so there's always this evolving relationship on a daily basis. We can't always put all our kids in one bucket and think that one idea is gonna work for everybody. So I think it's important for us to kind of take on that role individually, and then how do they fit into the collective? So these are kind of the four areas that we hit in our individual development program. And I'll give more of a general kind of like what our week looks like, but basic four pillars here of first we go into goal setting. After we've gained that kind of 1v1 relationship and kind of what makes them tick, then we go into goal setting. What do you really want? And then the next piece into their individual development targets is, what do you want to get out of this? If you're a center back, do you want to get better at defensive clearances or moving the line, staying compact, little things like that, where we can kind of make it individual for that player. And then it becomes a training application. And later on in the presentation, I'll have some film of what that looks like. And then it goes back to the reflection phase is how do we look at this, and then how do we move forward? So the first thing we'll start with is individual goal setting, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, but we use the acronym SMART. It's specific, it's measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And you guys can, I won't go through all the verbiage here, but you guys can kind of read through it. Is it specific to the player? Positionally, who is that person? Who is involved? And more of a deep dive of what do they actually want to accomplish. I think this can be watered down when you're talking about once a player gets into more of a travel club setting, it can be very watered down. And then once they start getting into an ECNL team or a National League team, or in my case, an MLS Next Academy, it can start to be more of a deep dive, because now we're actually talking about they're trying to attain real goals, whether it's to get that scholarship, to go to that school that they want to for me, it's getting guys into the second team, getting guys into the first team, and what that looks like. And then how do we track it? Measurable. So I'll show you guys late at the end of the presentation a little form that we use to kind of track the progress. Where are you after 3 months? Where are you after 6 months? Where are you after 10 months? And some of your higher end players, you can almost put it over a couple of years. Where are you after a year? Where are you after 2 years? And then kind of keep nudging them in the right direction. And then, is it attainable? Everybody's goal is to be a professional soccer player all the time, which is great. But how do we kind of do a deep dive into that to make it realistic and reachable for them? Is it relevant? Is the player you're working with motivated to actually do it, or are they just there to be there? And that's kind of where we have to figure out top talents and how to weed them kind of out of the and really put a focus on those guys quickly. Not saying that everyone else there's not a development going on, but we really need to identify our top players, and they need to be on a little bit of a different path. But I'll talk to you guys on how we can kind of put them all together, and how those top talents also help the players that are still in development and not all the way there, like where the top talent is right away. And then timely. And again, it goes back to, we need to set goals and hold our players accountable over a time frame. And when we go back to talking about it's player driven, this isn't something that the coach needs to be, on that player about, because I know you're talking about 20 players. Some of you may be coaching 2 teams in 1 year, some 3 teams, some directors are overseeing everyone. It needs to be put on the player. Are they coming up to you after a few months and asking you questions, or they have video clips that they can show you to go over? These are things that we're starting to implement because our kids are just so much better with technology now, and everybody's on Huddle, and someone's parents always doing a live stream to a game, or there's a live link where these kids can go back and screen record little shots of their game and come to you, coach, and say, what's your expertise in this, and can you help me in this situation? All right, so we go into the individual target areas. This is for Chicago. This can be very different. This is based off of our game model, and this is kind of where we came up with our individual target areas. So you guys can read through it. I'm not going to go through every one, but I'll just take, the first one, speed of play. And can we play in 1 touch? Can we play in 2 touch? What situations ask for those type of answers there in 1 touch and 2 touch? Can we create overloads? What is that? What is an overload? You know, depending on the age group, they may know it, they may not know the idea. And then kind of helping them through that. And then now eventually is how do we synchronize those types of things between 2 or 3 players, combination play? Just as an example, that would be for a kind of like a 6, 8, or 10, you know, kind of your midfield guys and how we go about it. And then we do a deep dive with high level clips and then showing them how they can actually do it in a game. Okay, so this is what a week looks like for us. And again, we're blessed to be at Chicago Fire, and we have an opportunity to school our kids. We have a director of education that kind of takes on the kids. We have about close to 40 kids in this program. These kids train twice a day, 4 times a week. So they're really giving their life to football. And they're not only field sessions. As you can see, if you look at our Monday, it's a performance session, might be their morning session. And then they'll have a team training session in the evening, or I'm sorry, in the early afternoon with a presentation maybe on some mental performance thing. And then on Tuesday, you can see we'll have a analysis session in the morning with a high level clip that's going to be based off their individual development session. As you can see there on the Tuesday, that specific Tuesday, we did defensive clearances. The midfielders did switching the point of attack, and then your forwards are doing finishing. So we're blessed here where I can get 3 to 4 coaches in a morning, and they're working specifically with that unit. It might be four to six players with one coach, so you can really dive into the details. We'll have a video analyst there as well, where he can take film of live repetitions on an iPad, and then we can take that player out and we're doing live coding there and we're looking at them, we're asking questions, and then it turns into kind of your periodization break. That's the way it works in Chicago. I know in real soccer terms, that's not real life. But can we find different ways to maybe implement these things? Can we take a 30-minute block of your hour-and-a-half session and turn that into an IDP session where maybe it's small groups, attackers going against defenders in a 2v2 situation, some things like that, where you can kind of find different ways to increase the individual development within the collective. I think that's what kind of led me to be very obsessive about individual development in the US. So that was just a little bits and pieces. You can kind of see the rest of it and kind of you can take a screenshot or just read through kind of what it looks like for a week. These guys are very engulfed in football, and we want to be very cognizant of their time. So we are always going over sessions, debriefing, making sure everything's done in a timely fashion so that we're not wasting these kids' times, because we know that we have them for the day. So we want that face time to be as high level as possible. Our afternoon session is from 2:30 to 4. So we want to make that really, really important for them so that when they get out of here, they can get home in time for dinner. They can get home in time for those conversations with mom, dad, grandmom, brother, sister, and we want to make sure that socially that these guys have something to go home to. They can actually have time to do their homework. They actually have time to go to bed at a good time, eat a good meal, and then we get them back in the morning. So that is why we do that. You know, we train a little bit earlier so that these guys can have kind of that social time, you know, and then Friday is kind of our off day where these kids can be normal kids. They can go to the Friday night high school basketball game or football game, enjoy that time before they have to hone in on game day on the weekend. Okay, so we'll go into some of the clips just so you can kind of see. This is the training application piece. And when we talk about specific versus individual, I'm literally talking about specific as a small group that could be players within 2 or 3 positions and how they synchronize with each other. And then the individual side is basically working with a player, 1 or 2 or 3 players in the same position. So I'll just show some of the clips we have here. This first one, we're working with the center backs, our midfielders, and our nines here. And as you can see, I have a coach at each area, and then after each repetition, there'll be some sort of feedback. So we're blessed to have sometimes 4, sometimes 5 coaches at one session. And then now these guys are getting individual coaching after each repetition or after each few minutes. We can go back and they'll meet in their small groups, talk about the situation, and then we go. I know it's a little bit different for a regular youth club team, but is it where you can ask for an assistant coach on a certain day so that you can split the team up? Is it where you can give certain goals before the session? So if you're working on combination play to finish, can the forwards be competing in the session on how many goals are they scored? Can the guys assisting or crossing, can they be competing on how many assists did you get today? And then at the end of the session, you can come up with some data. And then now you're working off of that data for the next one. After you repeat that session, now you can go back and see if there's actual growth. Are some of the kids dipping? And then ask for feedback. So I feel like there is a way to do these types of sessions, even in a normal club environment. This the next one here. We're working on just a little bit of a midfield situation and how to get unmarked and how to play forward, right? So it's a 4v3 situation. And then in these situations, same thing. We have a coach working with the attacking team, a coach working with the defending team. And after a few repetitions, we bring it in small groups and we take our time. These morning sessions aren't meant for these guys to be sprinting, running around, and really exerting a lot of energy. This is more of our learning environment. This is a teaching environment. It's almost 50-50 teaching to playing so that these kids can become, they get a lot of repetition in that moment. And then now in the real game, they can read that situation and then see what we can come up with. Because for us, it's not always about winning the game because we can play really poorly and win the game. And I don't come out of it as happy because we've been working on certain situations for the past few weeks, and they may not be reading the cues, so we have to go back to the drawing board. And there's other times where we've lost the game, but we're trying the ideas that we've been implementing, and that's where real development happens, so we can't get caught up in the winning and losing. We got to make sure that we are developing these players first and foremost. So our growth mindset as a coach, we have to be open-minded. It's not about winning and losing. Winning develops players as well, but it's a process. You're going to take some hits along the way. But at the end of the day, it might help that one player move on to MLS Next Academy. That one player might get his first call to the national team. That one player might sign his first contract with the second or first team. And that's our job. We have to develop the best players for the national team. And then these next couple ones are just a real quick of what we're talking about individual development. So we're working with the center backs and the outside backs. As you can see, there's a couple coaches giving different scenarios of just building around the back. What type of technique? I may get some feedback on, well, why isn't there real pressure? Why isn't it, why aren't they going up against anybody? It's to develop the technique. It's to develop the situation. And then in the afternoon, I'll repeat that same situation of building out of the back against a pressing team. So now they're getting their live repetitions. So now I've had data in the morning of how many repetitions they've done to get the technical execution right. And then in the afternoon is, can they execute it with now real pressure or even numbers? And then now I can work off of that type of video to go back. We might repeat it, and then I might see something a little bit different, or they come up with a different solution that we didn't even speak about. And that's real learning there. So I kind of do like a little drip feed of, let's do it without any pressure, just to kind of develop your technique. And then in the afternoon, we're going to put real pressure to see if you can actually use that technique in the right way. And then this is our last one here. It's the same type, it's the same kind of pattern, but it has like a little bit of a different flow on the way back of where I might be pressing. So maybe a player is pressing from the side on this one. On the first one, it was a pressing player coming forward. So just giving them little cues. If a person's coming in front, I can open up my hips now and play wide. If the opponent is pressing from wide areas and making you play inside, then what's the solution off of that? Okay. And then this last one here is just a quick little synopsis of different kind of like a highlight reel that our analyst kind of came up with here. So as you can see, each element has a coach. You can see a goalkeeper coach out there working with the goalkeepers, coaches working with the back line, coaches working with the front line here on finishing. So a lot of these kids are getting individual development still within that kind of collective team model. A little bit of combination play. And as you can see, there may not be as much pressure, but again, these morning sessions are about technique more so than about realism. And then in the afternoon is when I'll come up with the same situation, but now make it even numbers or +1, whatever I'm working on. This is where we can do kind of unit work on moving the back line, working on defensive clearances. And I won't see gains right away. But now that we're almost in kind of month 8, month 9, I can see real gains. We've had 3 players called into the U15 national team, and then we've had 2 players called into the under 16 national team. So for me and our staff, this is working. It was almost that moment of, wow, we had no players in the national team, and now we have 5, 6 players getting called in the age groups that we're working on. So I think it was kind of helping us nudge the coaches in the right directions, that we're doing the correct thing for these kids and providing them a good environment to learn. And then the last piece is kind of our IDP plan. You can kind of see it's a very simple one. It's a continue, stop, start. What are your strengths? Continue to do that. What are some of your weaknesses that you got to get out of your game? And then start. What do we need to start doing? Is it, I need to work on my weak foot. I never use my left foot, or my lefties are too lefty. You got to be able to pass the ball with your right foot. Not saying that that's what's going to make you a professional, but you need to get some of these things to a certain standard for you to make the next step. And then from the performance part, you can see the 3 months, 6 months, 10 months. These are where the kids are coming up with their own plans of, what do you want to accomplish in 3 months? Well, coach, I'm an under 16 player. I want to be a starter in 3 months. After 6 months, coach, I want to be training up with the U17s. After 10 months, coach, I want to be playing games with the under 17s, or going to a Generation Adidas Cup, something like that. And we can kind of work with that player along the way. And then on the bottom, you can kind of see, I won't go through it too much. We have all of our phases of the game. And then the P stands for the player. So the player rates themselves in those topics. And then on the side where it says C, that's the coach rates that player in that topic. And that's where your conversation comes from. So if you can see at the bottom, you can see the transition, attacking to defend. The player rated themselves a yellow, which meets the standard, but the coach said that's red, right? So then why do you think it's a yellow? This is why I think it's a red as a coach, and you can have an open conversation. And I think the most important piece is the bottom, the mental skills. We're lucky enough to have a mental performance coach that kind of keeps up with the players. And we come up with kind of we have our kind of pillars in that area, and then we kind of put those pillars into our mental skills performance, kind of our bravery, our self-belief, our resilience. These kids are always going through ups and downs, whether you may not know it as a coach, they may not be having a good week at school, or they didn't get a good grade on a test, and they come to training and they're a little bit pouty, and you're doing a high intensity training, and you're like yelling at this player. Well, we need to gain that before the session. Is you're looking at each player. Are they the same? What are they doing? Am I having these conversations with these kids, so you can get a better idea of where they're at? And then the bottom left piece is more of a fun one. The video clips, whether it's the player coming up with video clips or you sending them a YouTube link of a player that you want them to emulate, but just a way just to keep them involved in the game and keep them player driven. And that's kind of it. That was kind of the deep dive into what we're doing as a club. It's always an evolving mindset. This thing is always evolving. There's not one way to develop players. But you got to find your club's way of doing it based off of your game model, based off your principles of plays, and based off of that human nature. Soccer is just a platform for us to kind of gain a relationship with these kids. But you must be human with these kids as well and gain that relationship first so that these kids are actually being inspired to be a better player. That's it. That's my spiel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sammy. Certainly, if anybody has any questions, I certainly have one at least. Any questions, throw it into the Q&A. I guess my biggest question would be, how much is too much? You know, you have 2 practices a day, 4 or 5 times a week. When do you say to yourself, when do you say, again, knowing who's in front of you, knowing the players, knowing where they're at from a holistic standpoint, when do you make a decision, we need to kind of slow things down?
It's more towards the end of the season because you
Okay.
can almost feel like there's a burnout that's going to happen. What do we do? So you look at the whole calendar and look at kind of where your heaviest games are going to be, and it's going to be usually when the weather starts to turn. It's nice, and there's tournaments every weekend with league games, and especially for us, we have these big events. We're
Mm-hmm.
just coming back from the Generation Adidas Cup, where we played 7 games in 10 days. So us as a staff, we looked at that as like, how are they going to recover from that, knowing that we have league games coming up? We have games Saturday, games Sunday. We're on the road, we're on a plane, we're on a bus for a few hours to get there. And so it's us saying, let's be smart with these kids. Why don't we give them a week off? We've gotten them to a point of fitness where it's not about fitness anymore. Now it's about maintaining the kids' motivation to play, the kids' fitness levels. So it's working with the staff on how do we not get them to that point of no return and it's just
Mm-hmm.
burnout and then they check out.
Yeah.
So it's a daily check-in with the players, it's a daily check-in with your coaches, it's debriefing, it's being a proper coach. It's not just showing up to your session, run the session, I go home. It's, did I plan the session out? Was the timing right? Is it based off of our game model, or is it just something I put together on a napkin and then I got to go run the session? If you really want to be a high level coach, you must take it serious because we're impacting the youth,
Yeah.
so our job is super important. And it might be facilitating that one player to move on to an MLS Next Academy, but it's super important because that one player might turn into the Christian Pulisic that came out of a regular club environment, that we're all kind of working in. So we have to do our due diligence as a coach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously you spend a lot of time with the planning, and obviously you've got that support team around you with the people that you're working with. Um, how much time do you spend just from a planning standpoint, looking at the individual and then also looking at the team? How much time do you spend personally with that group before you go out onto the field?
It's a lot of time. So the individual development, I'll throw on the kids. I say, hey, you guys
Yeah.
are, because I work with teenage level players. They all know how to use all the apps and all that. So then I say, hey, I'm not going to do the work for you because I can't play the game for you. So you need to start developing on how to break down your film. So we'll give
Hmm.
classes on how to do that to the kids at the beginning of the year, how to go on Huddle, how to cut up your own film, how to screen record if you don't have Huddle and you just have a live link of your game that's on YouTube. All the parents are doing that now.
Yeah.
And then now come find me, and then we can come up with a time where maybe it's a 10-minute window on your cell phone that we can look and have a quick meeting about it. Um, those are some of the little things to kind of gain a time edge as the coach, because I want to keep ticking, from the collective point of view, from the team point of view. I need to hit certain standards with the team. It can't always be about individual development. But if I can throw it back on the kids on their own development and what they're doing, I can kind of guide them in the right direction on how that fits within the collective, within the team,
Yeah.
than what we're trying to accomplish as a club. And that's kind of where, my time is making sure I'm inspiring these kids to help themselves with their development. But I'm also doing my job in the collective to make sure my planning's correct so it makes sense to all these players, honing in on their individual development. Yeah.
Great. Great. And then just a last question, and just maybe it's from your experience with the 15 national team, could you just maybe, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience for yourself? Obviously, being a former youth national team player, now going back as a coach, what would be the biggest takeaway that you're like, wow, this was fantastic. This was something I'm going to utilize when I get back home.
Yeah, it was almost reiterating what we were doing
It's
in
good.
Chicago about individual development. From my time as a national team player, youth national team player, it was very much about, okay, this is the session, who are the best players in this session, and then here's the game. Where now it's, let's meet with individuals, let's meet with our units, let's meet with the team. It almost has that kind of let's take the stairs first
Yeah.
rather than just trying to take the escalator up or the elevator up immediately and then trying to reach our goal and push. Because everybody's development is so different. Even at a national team level, you might have a kid that's super shy. He has the talent on the field, but you're trying to socialize him within the group,
Hmm.
and then now that helps integrate himself within the group more, and the team chemistry gets a little bit better. So I think that was the biggest takeaway of honing in on the individual development, and more so from those 1v1 attacking. We need more game changers. We have a lot of
Yeah.
good players in the United States, a ton of good players that can turn on the half turn, that can play forward, but there's not enough game changers in those 1v1 attacking areas. So I think that is the next focus for US soccer from the youth development is, can we identify these game changers and then hone in on when to dribble, when not to dribble, when to combine, when not to combine. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be your difference maker in a game.
Yeah.
In a tight game at a high level, it's gonna be a moment of brilliance that gets you that second goal. So how do we hone in on that so that we can be game changers in all aspects of the game, not only just from that team concept of building out of the back and transition and defending, transition to defend, attacking to defending. But then how do we hone in on the sub principles and then those individual principles to make
Hmm.
your next Christian Pulisic, to make your next Tyler Adams?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need more of those types of players.
Definitely. Would definitely agree with that. We need some more nines. Maybe a Haji Wright is coming into the fold now. He should have, obviously they should have beat Manchester United on the weekend. They should be in an FA Cup final, all those things. Little jab to those Man United fans out there. But Sammy, really appreciate your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you spending the time with us today. And thanks for sharing that information. I think certainly the coaches on here will definitely utilize a lot of that stuff as they move forward for the rest of their season. So appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank
Sammy.
you very much. Thank you.
Take care. Awesome. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Chris, who can then also introduce Jude as well and talk a little bit about the band team. Over to you, Chris and Jude.
Yeah, so Jude from Band is joining us. Band is the official communication tool of Illinois Youth Soccer. For those of you that have participated in any of our cups, have known we use it as an additional way to communicate with participants, coaches, and parents. So Jude's going to go over just some of the tools that come with using their application.
So yeah, thanks for the introduction, Chris. My name is Jude, and I'm a marketing manager for the Land app. I'd like to thank you for your time and this opportunity for us to present that to you guys. So I'm going to be spending about next 10 to 15 minutes to show you how Ben could help you. And I'd like to start off by sharing a video that we took from United Soccer Coaches Convention back in 2023.
The app is at your fingertips and the information is one click away. And whatever I want the kids to see, it's there. And that's big for me. And let's be honest, the fact that it's free is amazing.
It's a way to help me keep all communication in one platform, eliminates text message, email when it comes to team communication. So I appreciate that aspect a lot. One of the great benefits of it is that our staff can oversee all of the communications with different teams and programs and coaches. So after we implemented Band, we noticed that parents, players, and coaches were all on the same page with what we're trying to put out as a club.
I think we just needed something easier for our players to see and respond to. And it's really nice to be able to just like click on the message and we know that they've seen it, so we know that like, okay, all of our players or who hasn't seen it, so maybe we can reach out to them and be like, hey, do you know, make sure you know all the information that's going on.
I can send out to the guys, hey, we're doing this in practice tomorrow. Take a look at it. Here's the video. It's a 2-minute clip. Be prepared for this tomorrow.
You're not scrambling at the last minute to get the word out if you have to cancel practice, before they leave the house. Just a last minute communication. The parents especially, they appreciate a quicker response.
After we play a game, we upload pictures of the game. Everybody sees picture. So it makes most of the parents, getting more involved in the team. So it makes our team like a community.
Yeah, it definitely makes our lives as coaches easier. It's been really efficient for us this past season. I've said to other college soccer coaches and other programs that I think it's a great app to use, and I would definitely recommend it.
It keeps everything in one place, and it's just really a big time saver, so we can focus on all the other things that we need to focus on, which is the people.
Yep. So those are some of the interviews that we did with the soccer coaches attending to the conference, and you can see that like they kind of mentioned about like why they really like about Ben, how like why they chose it, and like how like what are some of the features they really like about it. So I'd like to quickly go over some of the key features of Ben. And Chris just mentioned it that Illinois Youth Soccer has been using Ben for the tournament or competition information. So if you are participating in the state cups or like any cups leagues that Illinois Soccer will be using Ben, please join the group so that you have some experience there about and get some ideas about how Ben could be used for your clubs or your team. Ben, the idea of Ben, like the way we developed the app was that we receive a lot of feedback from different coaches, a lot of different athletic directors and other sports programs, and we listened to their needs. And one of the biggest complaints they had about prior to using Ben was that, first of all, they were often left with using multiple channels to communicate for their team communication. So you may have to use emails to reach out to the families, or you may have to use GroupMe or other chat message to send text message to athletes to give them updates on their calendars. You may use Sign of Genius to get some volunteers for any upcoming like fundraiser or anything like that. You have to use Google Calendar for schedule updates. So by having all these essential features in one place, Ben really centralize everything, all your communication in one place. So it gives you the real-time update. So whenever new content is up there, you can reach everyone by push notification. And this was briefly mentioned in the video. You will be able to check exactly who read your message. So that kind of solves the problem that emails may have. You never know who read your message, and people come up to say, and hey, like I didn't get your message, I didn't get your email. On Band, you'll be able to see exactly who has read your messages or who hasn't read your messages. And it gives admins the complete control over what could happen in the band, which I will go over a little bit later. But you can basically set it so that you can set it who will be able to create a post at the community board. I don't want to use the chat. I want to turn up the chat. And oh yeah, I want band to be quiet in this certain time period or during the night. So you'll be able to set everything as you need to. And again, this is free app, so there's no charge for any features that band has implemented so far. And yeah, you can create as many groups as you want to, and you can invite as many groups members as you want to each of these groups. So a lot of times, some of the apps like kind of charge you if you, when you exist, there's some sort of like threshold, but like Van doesn't have any charge like pricing model. So once you make a decision to give it a try, you can get started right away. No contract needed. So these are some of the features that Ben provides. There are many more to come, but here you see there's notification, where you see file sharing, text email alert, and poll sign up attendance, live streaming, and more. So here, like this is kind of typical screen of the coaches, like who are overseeing multiple programs. Maybe if you're club directors, this could be different teams that you're overseeing in your clubs. So you will be able to set up by different groups. The reason why a lot of people choose to create different groups is that they want to direct your message to the right people. So here, if I want to just communicate to the coaches, I'll just go to Kicks FC coaches group where will I have all the coaches in there. If I want to talk to staff, I'll go to this one. So yeah, by having this different bands structure for your program, you'll be able to direct your message to the right people. And there's a way, like let's say you created a post on one group, like let's say Kicks Apps in General, and you wanna post the same information across all these five different bands. There's an easier way for you to do it. You can post the same content to other bands by just selecting a button there. So I can go over that with you later. And yeah, like this is typically what coaches do. They a lot of coaches do engage with their team throughout the week, and like at least for once a week or so. And here you see the example that you'll be able to have an options to turn off on or off the comments. So like let's say you want your communication to be just one way, then you can just turn up the comment and just have it out there and just check the read count like to see how many people has read your post. And here, like you can notify the last minute changes. Like let's say, hey, like let's say this is like, hey, we have to cancel our game today. Like that's happening in a couple of hours. You want to make sure that you have reached everyone. And in case that happens, you'll be able to see how many people has read your post, how many people has did not read your post, and you'll be able to just reach out to these people who hasn't been updated on the cancellation notice. Another thing is the schedule. So the calendar is one of the favorite features of the all the coaches and athletic administrators. And here you'll be able to see like there are all the different events can be registered there. You'll be able to attach map. If you're a member, you'll be able to save that event to your phone calendar, and you'll be able to add reminders, RSVP, and all that. And if you're already using another calendar app like Google Calendar, Outlook, anything like that, you'll be able to easily sync those calendars to Band. Or if you want to use Band as your main calendar, then you will be able to export Band calendars to other platforms as well. You can share files, photos, attendance sign up on Band. You will get the free 4 GB of storage when you start it. Depending on your group size, you will get up to 8 GB. So yeah, you don't have to worry about you're running out of the space to share any files on there. Here, like you see, like I know that as a coach or soccer club directors, you have some forms to collect from your from families or athletes. So here you'll be able to upload files and everyone can access the file and download it there. And you can even make it into the folder so that your files will be a little bit more organized. And here, like you'll be able to send ask for feedback. So I mentioned about the survey poll, like sign up here. So here's this is an example of a hey, like when will be the best time for us to reschedule the practice? And you can just you start a poll and people will be able to participate there. And we also have built-in survey feature that you can like do it. So maybe end of the season, you'll be able to create a survey, get some feedback there, and seek for some improvement for the next season. And yeah, if you are thinking of using band with families or parents, they really appreciate like this how they are able to view photos that are shared by other parents or by yourself. So having the collective photo album that everyone can contribute will be very beneficial for your teams to archive some of those precious memories that you build throughout the season. Sorry about that. Um, and oh yeah, here I wanted to quickly mention about, sorry, like the chat feature here. So sometimes you want to use the chat in your group, and maybe if you're club directors, you may not want coaches to have like private, like I mean, even coaches do they don't want to share their private phone numbers with anyone. So you can centralize all that on band, and you'll be able to send a chat here, and maybe have one-on-one chat with the parents if you need it. And if you're the admins or co-admins or if you're the club directors, you'll be able to monitor all this chat happening within your group. So, in case something happens, you'll be able to have like a trail of like what happened between coach or the person or between members too. And this is what I mentioned about the customization that you'll be able to make the band as you want to. So here, when you see the privileges option here, you'll be able to set who can post, who can comment, who can add an event, who can start a private chat, and more. So by like if you want to have a one-way communication, you can just make it so that only admins or co-admins will be able to post there. If you wanted to keep it two ways, you want people to engage with each other, share photos or share posts with each other, then you can make the post as everyone there. So what it gives you is that you will have complete control over everything that is happening on band. If you think like, oh yeah, can I do that? Like, can I block someone from doing that? There's likely that there's an option for you to customize there. And bringing people on board is pretty easy. It's like you can share an invite link to your band, or you can share a QR code. So maybe if there's a pre-season or first coach parents meeting there, you'll be able to just place the QR code on the screen. People can scan on it, and they'll join your group, and they'll be your main communication channel for the rest of the season. So yeah, you can get started today by searching for Ben on the App Store. Ben is also available for you to use on PC at ben.us. So thank you very much. If you have any question, please leave it in the chat.
All right. Thanks, Jude. We appreciate your time and the information. So we'll be sure to make sure that all the attendees get the information concerning band and all the details there. So thanks very much.
Yeah, and one
All
thing.
right, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Chris.
And one thing on that, I know with many tournaments coming up here, and in the sanctioned tournament meeting that Rico held prior to the spring season, if there are any tournaments that use band for their tournament this spring as their communication tool, they'll get some free additional advertising through us to promote their tournament registration. So if you're interested with that, email me and I can give you the details on that. But thank you, Jude. Again, we use it for all of our stuff. ODP uses it. I'm going to jump on and share screen. We are currently using it for cups as well. It just gives us another way to communicate things to the leadership at the clubs for the cups this spring. So if you haven't signed up for it already, It just gives a way for us to send you some reminders about things that are upcoming so that they don't get lost in your email. So. All right, I will jump into some non-band stuff right now, just in terms of our other competitions here. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep, all good.
All right. Just quickly for those that are in the Spring Cup competitions, just a few reminders of some important deadlines that are coming up and dates. This Friday is the deadline for submitting agreed upon game changes to play off of Rockford on a different date, as well as all home team host details. Pretty much all of the groups are finalized, and those that aren't received some information yesterday about that. May 17th through the 19th are the group play games in Rockford, as well as the President's Cup quarterfinals on May 19th. Over Memorial Day weekend are our State Cup and President's Cup elimination rounds, including the President's Cup finals. And then the following weekend, State Cup finals and Illinois Cup finals. A couple of other reminders just in terms of cups for those that are participating for each of these competitions. All of the clubs have pre-made graphics that we've made for them. So if you go under whichever competition you're in, and you go to this year's event details, under the marketing materials, there are graphics by each club. There's a pre and post match graphic that you can use on social media to promote the team's participation and accomplishments in the event. And just another reminder with when it comes to red cards, those are included in tiebreakers. So that includes a parent or spectator send off. So again, this is just to remind everyone that this is a kid's game. So if you have some lively parents, I would just remind them that their actions could impact the team's ability to advance. But hopefully everyone will behave themselves properly throughout the spring. Just in terms of our other two big competitions for the spring with the state premiership, if you're involved in that, Vince has been doing some creative things and promoting the teams that are in that, including our new game of the week highlights. We did want me to remind everyone when you are submitting scores to include your goal scorers for the state premiership, because we're going to start doing some highlighting of those individual accomplishments, as well as we have started to do the primetime players of the week for both premiership and qualifiers. And those are due each Monday. So make sure you submit those. And for those teams in the 13U through 17U qualifiers for this spring, the patches are in. I know Vince has already emailed you all about that, but those are available for pickup or a coordinated drop off if you're out at any of the events that we're out at as well. Looking ahead to the fall, no real significant changes from what we did last fall. We'll continue to have the high school age girls for the State Cup and President's Cup going on, and then we will start the play-in games for the 14U division at the end of the fall, so that those brackets are finalized going into December to make scheduling easier for them. We will have the Illinois Cup again, including the extension into the 13U and 14U boys and girls in the fall, as we had success with that last season. So we'll continue to offer that. And then the Junior Cup will be again this fall. And we'll be looking to continue our cross-border competition with Wisconsin in this, as we'll have our 12U champions from this past fall playing the first weekend in June against the winners of the Wisconsin Junior Cup out in Rockford. So a little additional competition to the teams that win the U12 division at no cost to the teams. Here are just the tentative important dates of play for each of these competitions. Again, we will continue to host the Junior Cup in August, just so that it doesn't conflict with league games, but still allow the flexibility for teams to adjust if they can come to an agreement. And then the State Cup, President's Cup, and Illinois Cup on-site games will be October 11th through 13th, 18th through 20th. We then take a break the following weekend due to the Midwest Conference tournament in St. Louis that weekend, and then the State Cup finals are scheduled for November 2nd. And then in addition, we will continue to offer the state premiership and the qualifiers. The registration for the 2013, so the 12U age group, which runs all soccer year long, and then the 13U through 14U boys and 13U through 17U girls will be in the fall as well. All of this and registrations should be up and posted on the website by the end of the month. Excuse me, mid-May. Excuse me, I forget what. I don't even know what day of the week it is with everything that's been going on with this crazy spring so far. Just some additional marketing opportunities through IYSA we wanted to highlight as well. For those of you that follow us on social media, we've been doing highlighting players that have committed to play at the collegiate level. So if you have kids that have done that, they can submit that information, or you as the coach can. It isn't necessarily a requirement that they've had to participate in ODP. We do just kind of additionally promote that if they did. But in terms of where you can find that information on our website to submit, pretty easy. If you go under players, where did it go? I thought it was easy. Players, college commitment form right here. Simple form that they can complete and send in. We will have our tryout e-guide coming out the end of this week. If you missed the deadline to submit that information back in early April, luckily some of the craziness of the spring has delayed some of that, so I could still get some teams in there. So if you email me today, I can share you the link to get that information submitted so you can still be included in there. Early next month, teams will get information about our club directory that will include a free full-page ad for each of our member clubs to promote just your club overall. And then Adam is going to be touching base here on a new club recognition program that we're excited to announce some very initial details about here. One other thing that I did want to bring up, because unfortunately we've had a couple of incidents early this spring, and we have set up a official protocol when it comes to racially abusive language being used during a match in which a member of the officiating crew may not have heard it, but it's brought to their attention during a game. So if a player says, hey, a player on this team has been saying some inappropriate things to me, this is just the protocol we'll be using for IYSA run competitions. So for cups, premiership, qualifiers. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. So the first thing will be the referee will acknowledge that concern brought to them by the player of the coach. At the next dead ball opportunity, the whistle will be blown to send the team players to their bench, similar to what would happen in a water break. So the players should remain on the field but make their way to their technical area. The referee will go to the team that raised the concern and get the details about the alleged comments. And I say alleged just because it was not directly heard by any members of the officiating crew. If it was heard, it would be an immediate red card, but this is being brought to them because they didn't hear it. So they will get that information from the team addressing that. And then the referee will go to the offending team's coach, let them know what was said as well as with the players. So, and remind them that is completely unacceptable, and just make sure that it discontinues if it happened. Following that, then the teams will be brought back on the field, and IYSA will get a report, and we will send a communication to club leadership, making them aware of the incident, just so it's something that can further be addressed with the members of that team so that we don't have things like this happening in our games. So that is all that I have, Adam. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, or
Yep, please
shoot them
do.
in.
Throw them into the chat, or certainly if you want to unmute, I can ask you to unmute as needed. Any questions for Chris as I'm quickly setting up here?
Right.
Okay, simple enough. All right. Let me just share here. All right, so just very quickly, as Chris already kind of spoke a little bit about, just want to talk about a new accreditation program that we're going to be utilizing as an evolution of the 5-star program, and that's going to be the Illinois Youth Soccer Premier Club, not Premier, but Premier Club. And ultimately, what we're looking to do through the evolution of that 5-star that used to be part of our processes before I came in, what we want to do is to credit the clubs that are doing the right things. We want to make sure that it relates to the education piece, the participation piece, as well as making sure that everybody within that program, within that club, has a growth mindset. So obviously things have changed considerably since 2017 in terms of coaching education, obviously going through COVID and different formats in different areas. So we want to give clubs an opportunity to be able to earn their badges. And I think this program will allow clubs to be able to have something that they can firmly attest to maybe utilize within their own marketing programs and ideas, as well as receiving support from us. So the 5 main areas that we're going to be focusing on specifically are coaching education, player development, parent engagement, and safeguarding, which you heard from Shari earlier before. And then finally, competition participation. So obviously being a valued member within our competitions and different things that we're going to be going through. Specifics that are going to relate to each one of these will be forthcoming, but just a couple of quick highlights in terms of recognition. Specifically, these badges will be obviously shown on social media and on our website, so you can kind of see where you're at in terms of earning your badges. For some of you as clubs, you may earn those badges all right away, especially if you was previously a 5-star or currently a 5-star. There may be some adjustments as you go through. Secondly, you're going to have access to obviously logos in terms of using these badges, as well as parts of the Camp E guide, IYSA tryout guides, all of those areas as well. And then specifically, which kind of falls into the area which I'm certainly excited about, both myself and Marek can certainly help you in terms of your own coaching education within your club. So there's going to be the opportunities to take more courses, early access to be able to apply for certain courses, as well as having access to myself and Marek in terms of conversations, discussions where we can potentially help you moving forward within your own club protocols, ideas, creations of game models, and different things. Big part of that will be specifically the club technical leadership course, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But within that, that's going to be really a main focus that we would love all of the leaders within the club to be part of that program. And then obviously decals and screen badges, certainly to nice have for your uniform in terms of where we want to move forward. In terms of timeline, more information will be coming out probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Our plan is to have everything ready to go for the fall. So that would be something, especially if you are in the process of getting uniforms, and that might be something you want to put a badge on the side of your uniform. We'll definitely work with you concerning that. But we're really excited about how this is going to move. We'll certainly send more details as it moves forward. And there will be an application process that you'll need to go through. And again, going back to the specifics in terms of how you earn the badges, there will be certain things that we would require you to do. So I'll be happy to answer any questions as we go through, but that's kind of the tentative dates that we're looking at. Again, we're looking at hopefully trying to get certainly as many as 11 released fairly quickly within the fall, and we'll see how things move forward from there. Great. Just as a quick update on some of the courses that we've got coming up, specifically, as I always mention, this slide never goes away, and it will be part of the Premier Club process. We want all of your coaches to be part of the US Soccer Learning Center, making sure that they have their licenses in the Learning Center. It makes their lives easier, especially when you are hiring new coaches, developing new coaches as you go forward. And just to be clear, because I do get a lot of questions, a lot of emails, please make sure that everybody is clear on what the education requirements are that are needed to be able to get a full license, and then go to the participating member league to be able to then get your specific coaching pass. As we've always mentioned, a coaching license is different to a coaching pass. Courses. So we've got some, we were able to do a bunch of courses over the winter. I think we were able to do 9 or 10 courses. We'll be adding some more courses, some grassroots courses for those of you who are looking to get maybe coaches certified for the summer and then into the fall, starting in mid to late May. And we'll have a catalog of different courses that we'll be going through in the summer as well in terms of grassroots. And then specifically the D license. There's been a lot of interest in our D licenses, and we're going to be offering 2. Both of these are open right now. So be able to go into that. Both of these are waitlisted. And what that specifically means is we get the coaches to fill out a Google form so that we can check that they will have access to teams. It doesn't mean the course is full. It means that we can do some checking in terms of where everybody is and how everybody's available. So we want to make sure that that's really clear, because it is ultimately very important that you have access to your teams throughout that process. And then within our C license, we're currently in week 10 of our current C license. We will be hosting another one. We do have spots available. That is an open registration. As long as, obviously, the key thing is making sure you have access to 11v11 teams, so 13 plus to the course is set for 13 to 16. So please make sure that you have access for the fall, which should not be a problem. With the starting date when it is, the in-person is typically falls around first part of August, so that should be a good time for you to be able to meet as well as utilize that team during the course of your season. And then our B license. Well, what can I say? It was absolutely amazing, the interest that we got. All of our courses are full. We do have wait list open, so there are the opportunities for spots opening up. Currently, we are hosting 2 courses, one with the Chicago Fire and then one in Rockford. And then we will have another 3rd course, which will be starting in July as well. That's going to be up in Rockford. But if you have coaches that have an interest, tell them to join the wait list, because things do change, and we may be able to get a few extra people in. And then just finally, the last thing in terms of courses, which is obviously something that's going to be important as you move forwards towards being a Premier club, is our next round of club technical leadership. We're currently in a round right now with our 2nd group of technical leaders. And we're really excited about how this course can really help you as a technical leader, as a coach, as a director, specifically within all of these areas. Some of these areas are specific to what Shari talked a little bit about earlier, and also what Sammy was talking about in terms of the player development and the coach development. And ultimately, what we want to make sure we focus on in terms of the technical leadership is all of these things. And if you do not have a clear understanding of all of the things that are popping up here, then maybe it's something you need to think about in terms of taking this course, because ultimately having some development plan with parents, having a plan with coaches, having a clear game model, as well as a style of play, understanding the ages and stages of development. If you're not doing those now, then this is something that can help you address those issues. So from a course standpoint, we would highly recommend for yourself to be able to be part of that. I will make sure I put into the chat as well the link for the course, but we do have a new course starting in July if people are interested. And then just finally, the last couple of things, I always get the same question in terms of coach educator. There will be a new application process in the winter of 2020-24. So if you are interested, please contact me. You can see the runway to success there in terms of how you can be part of our process in terms of being a coach educator. And then in terms of continuing education units, CEUs, you'll notice that US Soccer is putting out a great deal of coaching professional development in terms of articles within their website. Please utilize those. Please go in and register yourself for some of those. But right now, there is no change in terms of CEUs currently coming in where you have to do so many hours. So as soon as we hear anything or any changes, we'll be sure to let you know. And then from an ODP standpoint, obviously, Marek and the group and all of the people that were part of that in terms of our coaching staff, we just finished up our cycle. State players have been recognized. Players who will be recognized to go to the regional events will be released very, very soon. And then we also, moving forward, will have our summer event in Ohio in the middle of June. So be prepared for that. If you do have players involved, we want to make sure we help publicize that as we go through. And then finally, certainly for the good of the game, I just wanted to share this story, which I thought was really interesting. Certainly from my standpoint, we was lucky enough to do a coaching course down in Peoria. Specifically, if you can see on the left side, I had to work with Pete Cowell, which is always good for the game itself. But we had two people there. You can see on the left-hand side next to me is Missy, and on the right side is Luke. And what was Kurt. And what was interesting in terms of those two people is Kurt is actually the head coach of the Jacksonville School of the Deaf, and so Missy was the interpreter throughout the whole course. So for those of you who want to become a coach educator, it's hard enough being a coach educator, but just think about how difficult it is when there's somebody standing next to you, sign language in everything that you say and everything that you do. So from my standpoint, it was a really fantastic experience, but you can see the growth of the game and how things are moving forward in a really exciting way. So it was a pretty awesome experience. And then secondly, within that course, which was great, and those of you who are high school coaches, we had Bolingbrook High School came out, brought all of their coaches, absolutely loved everything about play, practice, play, and are going to be utilizing it within their high school girls teams this year. So there is definitely avenues for groups and partnerships to be able to be part of that. So that's pretty much it. We appreciate your time today. Appreciate anything that you have. I'll certainly hang around if you've got any questions very quickly for Chris or myself or for anybody. But I want to thank our guests today, Sammy, Shari, Jude in terms of the band group, Chris, obviously, we appreciate your time. And thank you so much for being part of Illinois Youth Soccer. And we'll see you on the pitch very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.